My name is Lee Clancy. I'm with the League of Women Voters of Williamson County. The League is a nonpartisan political organization for women and men that encourages informed and active participation in government. This forum is part of our voter education efforts to help voters make informed decisions at the upcoming elections. And we hope over the course of this program you will learn more about each of these candidates and what they hope to do for our city in Cedar Rapids. So, welcome to the Candidates Forum. Between the 4 candidates you see here and 1 candidate, Bridget Wood, who was unable to attend this evening, these 5 candidates are running for 2 at-large positions on the Cedar Rapids City Council. Those in attendance this evening, and it kind of goes from your left to your right: Knox-Seymour, Ann Ho, Wade Wagner, and Susie Wynot. And I'll start by explaining some of the procedures for the forum that each candidate has received ahead of time. So, we're going to start out, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement, 2 minutes for a closing statement, and 1 minute to answer each of the questions that are being posed. Now, if you have questions, please get one of these yellow pieces of paper, write them down and get them down to the table down here, and we will take as many questions as we have time for. Opening statements will be done in the following order based on candidates choosing a number from 1 to 4. Carletta Knox-Seymour will start, and consequently it's also in order. That only happened by chance. Carletta will go first, Ann Ho will be second, Wade Wagner will be third, and Susie Wynot will be the fourth. And the closing statements will be done in the opposite order. So to the candidates, your timekeepers are right here, right in front of you. When there's half a minute left on your speaking time, the timekeeper will hold up a card that says, guess what, 30 seconds, indicating you have 30 seconds to finish your answer. They'll also hold one up that says 15 seconds, and also they'll have a stop sign. When you see that stop sign, please stop. If you continue speaking after the stop sign is held up, I will very politely say, thank you very much. Okay, candidates will confine their statements and responses to relevant issues and refrain from any personal attacks. I know no one will do that. It's not a national election. Please note the cameras at the back of the room, up in the top there. This forum is being taped by Robin Cash of Neighborhood Network News. It will be on the internet and on YouTube. So if you want to see your question, then get questions down here. And also, parts of it will be rebroadcast on KCRG. Forums are also available for viewing at the www.neighborhoodnetworknews.com. So, I would ask that you all, if you have a cell phone with you, please take it out right now and turn the sound off. If at any time during the forum you cannot hear me or any of the candidates, please let us know and we'll fix the sound. We request that you treat all candidates fairly. Please remain quiet throughout the forum. I would like no clapping, cheering, or calling out, with the exception that after their closing statements, you may, of course, clap for all the candidates if you wish. You're encouraged to submit questions for the candidates on the provided pieces of paper. Questions must be addressed to all candidates and must apply to issues or qualifications for this particular office. Raise your hand if you'd like another piece of paper. There are league members that are standing around. They will either distribute more paper to you or collect your questions. A league panel right here will review the questions for these 3 things. Legibility. So please write legibly because I have to read them. Clarity, so that the questions are clearly understood, and applicability to all candidates. I will read as many questions as time allows. Sometimes I may combine similar questions, so if you don't hear exactly your question, it may be because it was very similar to another person's and I combined them in an effort to cover a variety of topics. I will ask as many questions as I get, so if you bring it down here, we'll get it in. We have right time. So we're going to start with the candidates' opening statements. And again, we'll have 2 minutes to make your opening statements. And we'll start with Carletta Knox-Seymour.
Thank you, Mayor Clancy. 5 years ago, Mayor Ron Corbett appointed me to the Cedar Rapids City Planning Commission. As a City Planning Commissioner, I have had many experiences of learning and growing. It is because of those experiences that gives me the confidence to step up to a higher level of responsibility for the city. I want to be able to affect policy, to bring about positive change to the community. I want to contribute to the continued improvement of my hometown. One way I'm looking to contribute is to improve our economic development. For as much as possible, I want to eradicate poverty in our city. I want to make sure that those who live here have every opportunity to make it. But let's look at some troubling stats. According to the 2010 U.S. Census Bureau, 65% of the entire population of Cedar Rapids lives in poverty. 46% of that population are blacks, and there's only a 6% population of blacks, and 46% of them live in poverty. Hispanics have 3% population with a 12% poverty rate, and whites have an 88% population with a 7% poverty rate. But as I move forward toward eradicating poverty, what I also look at are the systemic issues like institutional racism, employment biases, and equal pay for equal work. And poverty are people who are not getting adequate wages, which keeps many families obtaining financial assistance. People need training and sustainable jobs. We need to be constantly investing in our human capital. And sustainable employment means that people are still working after 3 years with living wages increased. And on top of employment, this city needs to change its public bus transportation system in order to adequately accommodate its citizens at all levels. And as an African American woman, I will bring a different life experience and worldview to the city government.
Thank you, Ms. Knox-Seymour. Next is Ann Ho.
Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting the event, this evening's forum. I'm running for City Council again because we need to stay the course. Continue our commitment to economic growth and redevelopment that do provide local jobs. Support the city's efforts in providing community dialogue on stopping the violence and crime in our neighborhoods. Support the infrastructure programs like Paving for Progress and a flood control system that protects both sides of the Cedar River. Job one for me, listening. Listening and hearing the concerns and needs of our community. I've lived in all 4 quadrants of Cedar Rapids, and I'm proud to say I was born and raised on the banks of the Red Cedar River. I also think my job is to promote and provide inspired optimism. As we move forward, we're going to have to look at creative ways of supporting our community. And I've been very proud and honored of the gift that you've given me as your city councilwoman over the last 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Hope, and I'll go to turn the mic. Just make sure that when you are speaking that you are sharing the mic.
Okay.
Next is Wade Wagner.
Okay, thank you very much. I was honored and had the privilege to serve the city of Cedar Rapids and all of you and the citizens for 2 terms as Parks Commissioner, and I really enjoyed that job. I thought we got a lot done, and I had a lot of fun, and I've got a son that was born a week before my second term election, and he's matured a lot since then. He's now going to be 12 in a couple of weeks. Oh, I've matured a lot too, with a lot more gray hair and thinning hair. But anyway, I have a very strong concern, or legitimate concern, about him, my family, and his future. And that's one reason I'm getting back involved in city government, a city that I grew up in. It's my hometown. I just have a few things I'd list as priorities that I would have as a city council member, and I realize the dynamics have changed quite a bit since I served as commissioner. It's a different form of government, and we certainly have to work in a team. But my priorities as a city council member, in order, I call it my 6E program, would be the economy and jobs, emergency services, public safety, fire, safer neighborhoods, exercise, including a new rec center, entertainment, including more development in the new Bow District, Czech Village, and Kingston Village, and certainly more support for the professional sports teams we have here in town, which is a really good thing. Education and aesthetics. And I realize aesthetics is spelled with an A, but my son helped me put this list together for me. And E for excellence, I call it my 6E program, E for excellence, and these are examples, another E, of things I would focus on for all of you as a city council member here in the city of Cedar Rapids. And I'm honored to be here tonight with all of you. And I look forward to your questions and thank the league for the opportunity that this presents in a public forum to get all of the issues out here tonight to all of you and to the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner and Ms. Weiner.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you.
Thanks again to the League of Women Voters for having us here tonight, and thank you for being here. We know that there's a lot going on tonight, so we appreciate your time, that you're invested in Cedar Rapids. As the daughter of a veteran, I've experienced and I believe in paying it forward, giving back, and working together for the common good. And for the 2 years that I've been on council, that's what I've been doing. As an elected official, I was caught in the change of government that Wade referred to as we were staggering the terms. So I am back here again asking for you to entrust your vote to me as I run for 4 years. I'm certainly proud of the work that our city council has done and those who work for the city of Cedar Rapids. We have about 1,200 employees who give their heart and soul every day to making sure that our local economy and government runs well. I also wanted to say that our city has good leadership. It's really good cooperation on our council at the moment, and I'm glad that I've been able to be part of this team that has seen a lot of progress. I think every person has said, and I've heard them say, is that we have seen a lot of progress and that we're doing a great job, and we do need to stay the course. We're finally getting somewhere with repairs on our streets. We're investing in our neighborhoods. The budget's stable, and we've been able to keep tax rates steady. But I refuse to run solely on the status quo and what's been done. There's a lot of work still to be done, and I feel a great urgency to get it done. I look to the future of Cedar Rapids through the lens of collective impact, innovation, and community involvement, which includes listening and a number of the things that the folks here tonight have already stated. And again, I thank you for being here, and thank you for giving your time and being interested in what happens in Cedar Rapids.
Thank you all. Very nice. All right, we're going to go right into the questions, so keep them coming. We're going to start with Ms. Poe, and then we'll alternate down the road and then come back. So the very first one is, and some of you have spoken a little bit to this question in your opening statements, but what's your reason for running? Do you have a specific area of interest that made you choose to run? And so, Ms. Poe, if you would like to start, you have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. A number of my priorities are to continue funding, they're my funding priorities, city services provided by our fire and our police departments, continue with our street improvements, continue to work with the Iowa legislature on funding the gap for cities that was decreased in the commercial property taxes, economic development that grow local jobs, investments in our neighborhoods, infrastructure that includes streets, sewers, and lighting upgrades, housing and commercial developments. Infrastructure Committee has been working on a stormwater study to address flash flooding events, complete flood control funding that passes the Growth Reinvestment Initiative, state funding, and to continue to advocate with federal officials and the Army Corps of Engineers. Exploration of private partnerships, possibly in the flood control system, and continued support for commercial and housing development in our overlay districts in our viable commercial corridors. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Poe. Mr. Wagner?
That's a very good list, and I really appreciate that. And one reason I'm getting involved, this is my hometown. I've lived here almost 60 years. I'll be 58 in a couple of weeks. I went to school here, college, worked here in several different capacities. I served as a Parks Commissioner. But I really think we can go a few more notches and take an extra step or two to improve our economy and do some different creative things. I attended the town hall meeting at Mount Mercy College. Actually, it was a nationwide meeting regarding China investment here in the U.S., creating jobs. China will invest over $500 billion here in the next 5 to 7 years in the United States. We're the only congressional district in the United States where China has not invested. Well, I shouldn't say that we're in the time. There's 20% of us that haven't received that investment. But anyway, that's just one element, and I hope we can talk more about this, but China is going to be a big investor in the United States. I think we ought to look at China as a trading partner to create jobs and perhaps some infrastructure here. But I want to look at some creative, out-of-the-box things that we can do to help our community, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner.
Thank you. I too look to public safety, economic development, flood control. We have a ways to go on each one of these, and I want to stay the course to continue addressing those. When we get ahead of the recent crime outbreak, we'll be in good shape as far as moving forward with neighborhoods and economic development. We've seen housing come in, we're growing, and we have a lot on our plate that we've already started addressing. So again, it's about staying the course and moving these things forward. The tax base grows and the budgets balance easier. And as flood control, even the intern steps that have already been taken, they're already helping us and they're already getting into place. I look to growing CR Youth. It's a program of its first of its kind in Cedar Rapids that has come together with the Cedar Rapids School District and the city to grow and keep our youth and give them a voice in our government. They're also getting our high school credit for this initiative. So we have a lot of good things going on, but we want to continue those.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Knox-Seymour.
Economic development is something that I'm really held to, and I look at this. The city is doing, I think it's doing really well in a number of areas, and we've all attested to that. And when I look around the city, I say, okay, that's good. It's wonderful, especially when in 2014 the city was given the award of the All-American City. And so, you know, yay. But I look deeper and I say there's something more that needs to be done with economics involved, and that has to do with families, that has to do with training people for mid and high level technical jobs, that has to do with sustaining jobs, that has to do with bringing people in industries that can speak to that and that they're permanent jobs so that people can in fact take hold of this American dream that we have here in Cedar Rapids.
Thank you very much. I love when you said yay. That was good. Okay, Mr. Wagner, we'll start with this round of questions. This has to do with bike lanes, and I'll ask a question, but I'd also like to add something of my own in here. Making right turns through bike lanes is confusing. What do you think needs to be done next to develop bike lanes? I would also add, especially on 2nd and 3rd Avenues, where it stops one way, starts one way, stops one way, starts, it's extremely confusing. So between bike lanes and the one-way, two-way, what can be done next to make it less confusing for cyclists and for motorists? And Mr. Wagner, you start.
Well, you took some of my thunder there. I've lived here my whole life again, and I've driven down here 40 years, and I get confused. I will not let my mother drive down here now. She's 84, and that's not to be critical of what's going on. I'm all for the bike lanes. My biggest concerns are where will the snow go for snow removal? What about fire protection? If we get 3 or 4, maybe 10 trucks down there, if the Armstrong building would catch fire, where are they going to go? I assume, and I have not talked to public service staff, and I'm not a traffic engineer, I assume they've all addressed those issues. And it may just take an educational process by the citizens and the people that are motoring downtown. I realize too, though, we have a lot of people from out of town. And every time I come down there, I see people using that right lane to drive on. I've been passed several times myself down there. I'm down there quite a bit. So that's a real difficult question. I think they're great to have the bike trails, and maybe the design needs some tweaking, and we need to look at exactly what we want to do in the long term with all of this, but it's definitely a concern for police and for people that drive downtown. So,
Thank you very much.
but I do support the bike trails.
Ms. Wagner.
Thank you. So changes are essential to attracting and retaining our workforce and growing our community. I support the bold experiments that are underway. Some won't work, and we need to pull back where things don't have the intended impact, like the reverse angle parking. but some of these changes will work. And they transform a community from one that looked like it was still in 1969 into a place where the next generation wants to live and work. I'm listening, and I'm hearing what they like, what people do and don't like, and some of the changes seem welcome, while some of them take time getting used to, and some of them we need to pull back on. It's not always easy, and we need to really do work on how to communicate and execute these changes. But it would be a big mistake to think that the status quo is good enough in the year of 2015.
Thank you. Ms. Knox-Seymour?
Well, I have to say that I'm just as confused as anybody else because making the right turns, I'm never sure if I need to be all the way in the right lane where the bike lanes are. So I kind of thought about like having, I don't know, like a second, well, you can't do a second pair of lights. That would be crazy. But you've got to do something. I know I'm talking to you guys, but I'm just as confused. So I tell you the truth, I don't really have a great answer for that. And I'm going to have to lean on the people who give us that kind of information. And then I can, at least if they give 3 or 4 different scenarios, then I can think about, which one makes the best sense. That's all I've got, folks.
Thank you. Ms. Poe?
Thank you. The Skinny Streets concept, which you're seeing downtown right now, that endorses two-way streets and bike lanes for purposes of slowing down the traffic. It causes less crashes, and it also increases economic development. We've studied this. When I first got on council, we spent really the last 4 years in studying with the experts like Jeff Speck. This isn't something that council just did overnight. We took a lot of time to go through this comprehensive plan of changing our traffic. I will tell you right now that this configuration isn't going to last forever. We had an infrastructure committee meeting today, and the thing that's holding us up right now is working with the railroads. So as soon as we get the clearance with the railroads, we'll be able to continue our one-way traffic or our two-way traffic up and down both the second and third avenues.
Good to know. And it's a railroad issue.
It is.
No, I'm in favor of two-way streets, but I just couldn't get the one-way two-way. Okay. Thank you very much. Very informative. Ms. Weiner, you're the next question for first answer. It's on historic preservation. What are your plans to help historic preservation for the city of Cedar Rapids?
Well, I'm very excited about historic preservation. I serve on the History Center as well as a volunteer in our community. So I'm very entrenched in our community and moving it forward. As far as that goes, our councilwoman, Ann Poe, has been heading up that charge on our historic preservation, and there's lots of things that are going on with it that are in awesome shape. One of the things that they're definitely looking at doing is a foundation, and we've been doing that with Parks and Recreation, which I liaison to, so we have different roles on council. So with the historic preservation, I think it's a great thing for our city because we need to know where we came from to know where we're going. So I fully support the preservation efforts that we're moving forward.
Okay, Ms. Knox-Seymour?
Oh, sure. I support that, the historical preservation whole program because I am one of the task force members for that. And so it's been exciting to be part of such a huge, it's collecting data and all the great homes and the buildings that we have been able to be a part of, to say this is what, and the interesting thing about that is that not all, what I found out, not all buildings, because they're 50 years old and older, 50 years and older, they're not all necessarily the buildings that we need to keep. So it's been interesting to figure out which ones are the ones to keep. And so when we have tourists coming, then we get to show off all our really great buildings. And so I'm all in favor of that.
Thank you. Ms. Poe?
Thank you very much. As Councilwoman Wynock mentioned, I am the council liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission, and I also was a member of the task force that put in place the very first historic preservation plan for our community. It provides the guidelines and the outline for how we will move forward in the future with historic preservation. I have, I think ever since I was the liaison as a council member to HPC, I have strongly advocated for a foundation or a Friends organization, because we as a city require certain adornments and ways our historical homes or structures look. And so it's like almost an unfunded mandate. So we ask people to do certain things with doors or windows or sidings, and yet we have no way to help them through grants or anything else. So I'm hoping to get that in place. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you. When I was a commissioner on city council, we did establish several places that became part of the National Registry of Historic Places here in Cedar Rapids. We also created 2 or 3 historic districts, as I recall, or at least started that process. And we also worked with the neighborhoods, especially over in Wellington Heights and that part of town, that were having challenges renovating their homes so they could meet certain standards and criteria to be called a historic neighborhood. And that involved the limited use of vinyl siding and that sort of thing. I was real happy that some investor, and I can't remember who or recall who it is, invested in the grocery warehouse and the old furniture mart downtown to make that a condominium. I like the blend of the old with the new architecture. That really makes our city stand out as a cosmopolitan city. Most cities are doing that, so I'm all for historic preservation and those kind of programs, and I would hopefully help secure more federal funding to keep that program going here in Cedar Rapids.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Knox-Seymour, we will begin with this round. This one is about a senior center. Are you in favor of starting a full-service senior center in Cedar Rapids?
Yes, I am in, yes. I absolutely support it. And primarily because I'm getting up there. So I win something as well. But when the Whitworth Center was no longer, it appears that many senior citizens have been without. And so I am so much in favor of that, and I've heard so many people talk to me about that. I'm president of the AAUW organization, and the women in that organization have been saying, where are we? Where can we go? What can we do? And one of the things that was not included in Envision CR was that, at least not on this at this level. And so, we'll have more time to include something in terms of the Senior Citizen Center later on.
Thank you, Ms. Poe.
Thank you. I'm for anything. My mother used to take art classes at the Northwest Rec Center, and in the flood of 2008, we lost that recreation center. It's now being built over next to Harrison School. I'm in favor of, and we will have senior programs at that particular rec center. But I'm also just wondering if, rather than having one facility like we had with Whitworth, if we're dreaming big, then I think we should take into account who else we can serve with rec centers. I would advocate that we put a rec center in every quadrant of the city, and that we have programs not just for seniors, but also for our youth, so that they have supervision along with mentoring programs. And so I think it could serve a dual purpose. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner.
Again, I served as Parks Commissioner 10 years ago, and we tried to move forward on a rec center and a senior center. I was on the Whitworth board, perhaps a combination of the two. It's shameful, we're in a building here, a rec center in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, that was built when Teddy Roosevelt was president. I mean, it makes no sense to me. We spent over $500,000 on federal studies for this program. We're trying to get this initiated. It's not rocket science. Let's put up a building down in New Bow, a rec center for the kids, basketball, and let's put something in there for the seniors as well. We're going to have dozens, if not I think dozens of seniors retiring every month in this city. And I talked about building pickleball courts, shuffleboard, a garden, urban farming. But yeah, we need a rec center and we need a senior center built. I'd like to see it down in New Bow, and we can talk about funding for that, but I'm sure the citizens would get behind it if it was a creative plan. But we definitely need something it's shameful. We're in a building that's almost 115 years old right now.
Thank you, Ms. Wynette.
Thank you. So, as a member of the Horizons Board of Directors, we've already been in this discussion. Lynn County is looking at a site that they used to have for a senior center, but the question now that we have at the table as we're discussing this is it a senior center or is it multi-gen? What does it look like? And that we also look at things like food security for seniors or recreation. What is it exactly that the seniors would want in a senior center? So would you really want to maybe talk about food security and have a place to come and eat? I champion summer meals for kids every summer. It's an FDA program. And it brings the money down into the local economy and into locally so that we can serve our kids to make sure they get at least one square meal a day during the summer when school is out. And that leads me to that we always need to keep an eye on our revenue source, and that will be necessary for all the ideas that are being mentioned here this evening. And a majority of our city budget comes from taxpayer dollars. So I think it's always important that when we have these ideas, we're looking at how will we pay for this.
Thank you very much. All right, this round we will start with Ms. Ho. This has to do with the library. There has been recent attention to Iowa's reading and retention law that goes into effect in 2017. Statewide, there is a 25% substantial deficiency. Locally, there is a 21% deficiency. What is your level of support for our library, and more specifically, for the library levy?
Well, we're sitting in it, and I think it's really one of the most state-of-the-art facilities. It's LEED certified in all of the state of Iowa. I've mentioned this before when I've been asked by the library. My grandchildren love it and come and use it all the time, and they call it Barnes & Noble on steroids. You can come in, you can sit down, you can enjoy it, and it really is a good community resource. All you have to do is look at all the computers that people are utilizing that don't have access to computers. I'm personally going to vote for the levy. I think it's an important asset. Its circulation level is high throughout the state, and it's a much needed asset, and it's paid for. Thank you.
Mr. Wagner.
Well, as a substitute teacher, almost full-time here in the Cedar Rapids School District and Lynn County, and also with a 12-year-old son, I know students need to read and read a lot more. They're just on the computers too much. They're on their cell phones, and my son's just as guilty, and I'm trying to get him to read more books. So I guess my message is this is a marquee building, a beautiful facility, state-of-the-art, one of the nicest probably libraries in Iowa, if not the Midwest. And so anything we can do to encourage kids to be involved, come down and get some books and read is great. And I'm familiar with those statistics. I saw those and I was really shocked. But by the same token, when I see some of these papers that I'm dealing with and some of the communication levels in these schools, and I'm talking about high school now, not elementary, I know and realize we've got to move forward and we've got to be aggressive in nipping this in the bud, and I think the Board of Education's got to be involved with more aggressive curriculum and programs that encourage and teach kids how to read and utilize reading and benefit from it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wynette.
Thank you. Well, in full disclosure, my degree is in education, so I think you know exactly where I'm going to go in answering this question. 21% deficiency is just absolutely unacceptable, especially for the future of our community, and the kiddos deserve better. I think that this is a paid-for building, as Councilwoman Poe had pointed out. There hasn't been a levy in place for the city of Cedar Rapids Public Library since 2008. I think it's the right thing to do. It's fair and right to ask our community to vote on this. It is a resource for so many that maybe otherwise wouldn't have access to the internet to apply for jobs. It's also goes well beyond serving youth and children. It's a community hub.
Thank you. And then Knox-Seymour.
When I lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I became certified to teach adults how to read. And that happened through the Milwaukee Public Library. And what a joy it was to be able to use my skills and talents to help adults how to read. So when we're talking about deficiencies in terms of reading, we need to understand how important the library is. We need to understand that and not only for adults, but certainly for our future, which are children, right? But when we're also talking about jobs, people need to know how to read. Sometimes when people go for applications, they don't know how to fill out the applications. So if we could keep in place the library, our library, for all the right purposes, for all the right things, we'll be doing a great thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Wagner, you will be the first to answer this question. There is a huge shortage in the amount of affordable housing in Cedar Rapids, which is causing an increase in homelessness. What will you do to create more affordable housing for people in poverty?
Well, that's a tough question. Obviously, under this form of government, you would have to work closely with the city manager, the mayor, and the entire council to address that issue. And I know as a volunteer with the Cedar Rapids Police Corps and working with my colleagues in the police department, homelessness is a really serious issue and a growing issue here in Cedar Rapids. That is because of a lot of reasons, obviously, at the state level and around the area due to some cuts in mental health programs and other things. But I would, I guess, work as a council member closely with landlords and with developers and with seeking government help to try to find some housing and programming in place and funding, obviously, to help those in need to stymie this escalation we've seen in homelessness. And we got to get help from the state and elect people at the state level, sorry to say, that are going to support programs and infrastructure that are going to help the mentally ill, because that's a big part of this. And we've got programs, and it's hurting us here in Cedar Rapids.
Ms. Wagner.
Thank you. As a member of Valor, Inc., we work closely with veterans and with the homeless. We do a sleep out for the homeless. And again, this is a part of my council. This is part of my being entrenched within our community and working side by side with folks in our community. Housing's starting to come back into balance. Home prices are up and infill has taken place, opening the door to many more availability, where there's always more that can be done, of affordable homes in the core areas. The Roots program for housing replacement after the flood has brought young families into neighborhoods. And we've also saved Harrison School, which is seeing enrollment increase, and Taylor, vitality and the sense of place are on the rise. So while there's always more to be done, do know that we are working toward taking care of the issue of homelessness.
Thank you. Ms. Knox-Seymour.
Yeah, so creating more affordable housing is, I think it's just a mandate in terms of our city. There are so many people that are coming to our city left and right all the time, every day, and that's a good thing. But we also have to make sure that we're putting them in good housing. And so homelessness, I used to work for a homeless shelter in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we get people off the streets. Madge Phillips does a wonderful job in terms of bringing, when people come to Cedar Rapids, women, children, they do a good job at least starting the process. So I think it's really a multi kind of thing that we have to do to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all the people that come to our city. And what I'm also gathering is that most people don't stay homeless for a long time, but we do have to keep things moving. We have to keep things moving. So I think we just work on that.
Thank you. And Ms. Todd.
Thank you very much. As Councilwoman Wynot mentioned, the Roots program has been very successful. After the flood of 2008, we lost a lot of our housing stock. We have completed 176 out of 213 allocated units, and which have also helped to increase the value of our properties. We have moved a lot of young families into those Roots homes, especially in the case of the Northwest Side, and have been able to help keep Harrison School open as a result of that. We have some programs with the city, tax increment financing programs that also help us address residential products. I think if you just take a look at what we're doing with some of the revitalization of old buildings like the Mead Building in Wellington Heights, and some of our older buildings, and then using the TIFs appropriately for housing and affordable housing in the core of our community. I think we've done an amazing job so far with still a lot more to do. Thank you.
Ms. Weiner, we'll start this round, and it has to do with bus transportation. What would you do to make bus service more user-friendly?
With transportation, I currently serve on the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is about regional transportation, so it goes out beyond Cedar Rapids and it's serving many people. We also have just launched a significant study to find that out by talking to folks within our community to see what that looks like in terms of bus routes, bus availability, making sure that it's there when they go to work or when they want to go to a library on the weekend. All of that will come out of the significant study that is being launched now by MPO. I also serve on the Horizons Board, and part of that was I worked on the committee that helped bring together the merger of the NTS, the Neighborhood Transportation System, and Horizons so that we could better serve those who are underserved or in need. So we do have progress happening with transportation. It's not something that isn't being looked at. It definitely is, and we understand the need.
Thank you. Ms. Knox-Seymour?
Well, definitely I think, and many others think, that there is a problem with public bus transportation. And what I put forth is that though we have NTS, and I'm very grateful for that, but that we also make sure that the people, and the ridership has increased in terms of in the city. So we know, and I've talked to person in charge of that the ridership for 2015 has increased way above level. So though things are being worked on, it still needs to, there's still some problems. I think that one of the things we need to do is change from that central hub, I call it catch a bus policy, so that everything that in terms of catching a bus, there's not like an intersecting kind of bus system that we have here, and so it forces people to continue to go downtown, which causes a lot of problems.
Thank you. Ms. Bowe?
Thank you very much. I am looking forward to seeing the results of the transportation study, and we supported NTS when we were looking at funding them at a state level. They provide a service and ridership at night for people who wouldn't normally be able to get to their jobs in an overnight situation. So I'm looking forward to the study. I think the ridership has increased, and I think there are opportunities always to improve and just be thoughtful in the process as we go about changing any system. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Wagner?
Oh, thank you. I personally never have taken a bus, and I'm fortunate and grateful, I guess, that I'm lucky enough I haven't had to because I had a car. My sister is mentally handicapped, and probably for 30 years she rode the bus to get over to Options and where she was going to work, and it was always on time. The staff was always very respectful, and I know that buses serve a community like hers and a lot of people here in town. They do a great job. NTS was, I think, evolving and as we were commissioners and on council back 10, 12 years ago, and I support that program very much. It's very much needed. Carletta has a point. Maybe we could redirect the routes a little bit so there is some more intersecting or a building where they wouldn't have to spend 45 minutes or an hour on the bus getting somewhere, transferring, if you will, to another route. I'm glad the transportation center was remodeled down where it is, and it looks nice. I see a lot of people using the bus through my neighborhood and around, and they seem to run on time, and the staff is excellent, and we've got some great people running the program, so I hope that answers that
Thank you.
caller's question.
Ms. Weiner?
Well, she answered it.
I answered
Yes.
first.
She started it. Good catch. All right, so Ms. Knox-Seymour, you will be first in line for this one. What are the quality of life topics that City Council needs to pay attention to, or that should be one of the city's priorities?
Did you repeat that?
What are the quality of life topics or issues that City Council needs to pay attention to, or that should be priorities for the city? Quality of life issues.
One of them, I think, is good public bus transportation. I think that without that, in terms of going forward into our future, that which we have already started, we're redeveloping the city, so especially the downtown area. So we need something, we need our public bus transportation to also reflect that. We need to improve. We need to look like, if we're going to act like a large city, then we need to look like one. We have to put things in motion for that. And I think going further, that's a really big one. The other part of it is making sure that we have people who are housed adequately and eradicating poverty. That's one of the things that I really think is big.
Thank you, Ms. Bowe.
Yes, thank you. Well, in terms of quality of life issues, we need to support development, both commercial and housing development, in our overlay districts and along the Ellis Bible commercial corridor. We need to think, when we think about quality life issues, we need to also think about walkability of our community. We need to also think about trails and bike lanes. I had when I first ran, I had an engineer tell me, I work at Rockwell Collins and I just can't get from the west side to the east side. And so having a trail system that people can actually use to get to and from work by using their bikes would be great. But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to job development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner.
Thank you. I would agree with everything they said, and getting back to my previous comment about a rec center for kids and ball fields and that kind of thing for quality of life and recreation. We're building that complex in Lynn County. We have almost 300 Little League teams here in Cedar Rapids. We need those diamonds. We could put some more in town here. We need basketball arenas for the kids and families. I completely support what's going on with Kingston Village, the development along the river, and Newbow District and Czech Village. And I think that's all important to develop those districts. We got a lot of young people, a lot more than I've seen in a long time, moving to Cedar Rapids, and they want some things to do at night. The casino, we haven't talked about that. I would support that. I think that would be neat for the older folks and the younger folks to bring in some entertainment and really enhance that whole area over there as far as along the riverfront goes, and be a kind of a landmark and a gateway to our city, if you will, coming into town. So those kind of things and some of the things they talked about. And my time is up, so let Susie talk.
And Ms. Wagner.
I believe quality of life is providing equitable services and community for everyone. So in talking about that, Wade talked about Prospect Meadows. So that's one of the things that we championed on council this past year, is that it is important to our community. It has 17 ball fields, softball, baseball fields, that will be a great asset to us regionally. And in championing that, I saw the value in it and came up with a approach that will be equitable to them as well as us. And then we also talk about youth. We need to bring youth into our conversation, which we've started to do this year by bringing CR Youth online and giving them a voice in our government. What does tomorrow look like? What do you want Cedar Rapids to look like 28 years from now when you're growing your family? What does it look like for a job that you want to have? Where are we going and what are we doing to be inclusive to all folks? A senior center or a multi-gen. I believe that quality of life encompasses all of these things, and it also includes safety, which synthetic drugs was one of the items that I championed this last year. So I believe it encompasses everything. Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, I'm running through these questions pretty quickly, so if you got more questions, please write them down and you can answer. All right. There has been some information in the newspaper lately, and Ms. Ho, you will answer this one first. In the newspaper about the 4-inch topsoil ordinance at the state level that has been repealed. The DNR repealed the 4-inch topsoil rule, and meaning when you develop, you don't have to replace the 4 inches of topsoil around development. Should Cedar Rapids develop its own topsoil rule?
Absolutely, without question. Whether or not, when you put a development in, like a housing development, they scrape off the topsoil, and what's left is compacted clay, and you can't grow grass on compacted clay. And so there are some, we've been looking at the infrastructure committee that Councilman Olson chairs, and he actually brought that forward. And it's important because it provides, it prevents runoff, and it helps with our stormwater control, and it keeps the water where it's supposed to be in a rain event. And so we're looking at some alternatives that aren't quite as expensive, but definitely we need to have an local ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner.
I think I'm familiar with that issue at the state level. I've been following that too, and I appreciate that. Just by my own observations, I don't think I've noticed a major problem here in Cedar Rapids. I haven't heard a lot of complaints from people, and when I watch construction projects, it seems like they're doing an equitable and fair job. We do have landscape standards here and certain standards and rules that apply, I would think, in terms of water runoff and that kind of thing. And by the same token, those that are doing the developing, I'm sure they want to keep as much soil that may be scraped or excavated on a site so they can throw it back in there so that they can hold down their expenses. But I would certainly be willing to look at that depending on what kind of problem it is. I'm not sure how big of a problem it is here as opposed to other parts of the state where Des Moines and the lawmakers down there have been addressing it along with the DNR. But I agree with, everything that Ann said here in terms of protecting the environment and that sort of thing. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Warner.
Thank you. Well, sometimes it's difficult to follow your fellow council member. So everything that Anna said is correct, and Councilman Olson, who's here tonight, has championed this for so many good reasons. We talked about grass, we talked about clay. We speak to runoff, we speak to storm sewer, irrigation and things like that. So the outcomes in this outweigh the cost regarding when we start talking to contractors and developers. And it also talks about keeping our structure solid and our sustainability of our community. So I'm in favor of this, and I believe that this will come before council before too long.
Okay. Ms.
I guess I'm going to have to echo everything that Ann and Wade and Susie have said about this. And I think it is important that we pay attention to these kinds of things. When, now, it may not be a problem yet in Cedar Rapids, but if it's something that I think we need to pay attention to, and we also need to make sure that our developers are paying attention to those kinds of things as well. So that's about all I have to say.
Okay. So, Mr. Wagner, you are the first in line for this question. Overlighting of signs and spaces creates light pollution. What would you recommend to control light pollution in our city?
Well, I guess I would limit the amount of lighting or lights, simply put. But I know we have the design standards. The signs are getting smaller and they are getting lower, if you will, which I like to see. I was out in Portland, Oregon 30 years ago and all the signs were 8 or 10 feet, which they should be. I'm a real stickler on this stuff as far as aesthetics go, and I'd be all for any kind of standards we would have to limit lighting. And I realize you got to have safety in parking lots and things like that. And then we can also invest in their new technology. There's a lot of different kind of lights out there now that are more direct and more efficient, if you will. So that would hopefully limit the pollution and the lighting we see. But I'm not sure the kind of lighting we're putting along First Avenue. I see new lightings going up there, and to me it looks like it's more directed toward the street and not so much out in the neighborhoods, which I like to see, because I got one in front of my house, an older light, and I don't like it. I can't sleep. It's so bright. I could have it pitch black when I sleep, but I hope that answers the question for you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Weiner.
Well, I think what Wade's referring to is LED lighting, and it is. It's different than the older lighting, and it's not the yellow color. It's more direct when it's shining down. So we are seeing more and more of that happening. As far as street lights go with Alliance, they do that changing out, and we work in conjunction with them to make sure that we're doing the best we can. So in community development, which I'm a member of, we talk always about what does our community look like and what do we perceive for it. So this is one of those things we've talked about with signage, we talk about billboards, we talk about lights. So this is a discussion that happens, and you know, one of the other things that we've talked about is, well, where can we also take stop signs versus stop lights? So while that may not seem like a huge big deal, everything contributes to light pollution.
And Knox-Seymour.
Yeah, so as a planning commissioner, those kinds of questions come before us all the time with respect to preliminary site plans. And so we are always looking at signage and lighting for storage units, for example, or parking lots and those kinds of things. So it's something that you know, we take very seriously because lighting, over-lighting is a pollution, there can be a pollution. And, you know, we need to find ways always, just like in our households, we need to always find ways to minimize that light and use other methods that will save lights and also save our eyes and just be an improvement all the way around. So I'm in favor of making sure that we take care of that and watch over that. And yeah, that's about it. Just be in favor of that, of lower lighting.
And Ms. Pope?
Thank you very much. Over the last 3 or 4 years, City Council's been working on design standards as new construction comes before us, and when it comes to lighting certain new developments, one of the things we've always looked at is the direction of the lighting and the downward facing lighting, just for these very purposes, to help eliminate light pollution. And you know, I think also that so we've been working on that, but you get rid of a stop sign or a stoplight and you go toward a stop sign, and to Councilwoman Wynot's point, that helps as well. So it's not any one big thing that we've been working on, but several smaller things that eventually I think will all help with the light pollution in our community.
Okay. Ms. Wynot, you'll be number one on this round, and I'll try not to ask you this question twice. Okay. What are the most important action steps the city can take for strengthening and developing our neighborhoods?
One of the biggest pieces we have are our neighborhood associations. We have 10 strong here in Cedar Rapids, and to have more would be a blessing. They are the strength of our neighborhoods. They are the boots on the ground, the folks who see what's going on. So when we really can talk about many things about strengthening our neighborhoods, and there's many things that our police officers are doing if we're going to go to that point, and I can list those, but I think that when I had to name one, I think that our neighborhood associations are our greatest strength.
Okay, Ms. Knox-Seymour.
Yeah, some action steps that would create a more strengthened neighborhood is feeling safe. So we want to always make our neighborhoods feel safe, and that comes by way of making sure that our police officers are on deck and that they are friendly with the neighbors, and so that there can be any reporting that needs to be done. So we need to strengthen those kinds of relationships. We need to also strengthen neighbors in terms of so many times in so many situations, we don't know our neighbor. So if when that is no longer in place, we are not keeping ourselves strong. So that's another thing that I would call into action in terms of, and I know there's some neighborhood associations that are doing those kinds of things. Know your neighbor, get to know your neighbor.
Thank you. And Ms. Pope?
Thank you very much. First of all, I think that where people live and how the community looks has a large impact on that neighborhood. So the things that cities can control are infrastructure, streets, curbs, gutters, lighting, some of those basic things that build pride in a neighborhood. We've been working very hard in Wellington Heights to make sure that the streets and the curbs and the lighting are nice, so that people have a sense of pride, a sense of belonging, that they like where they're at. And then, of course, anything we can do to strengthen our neighborhood associations. We've put city directors and police officers at every one of those city neighborhood meetings, so that there's a community dialogue face-to-face with the neighbors, and we can hear firsthand what's going on in their communities. Conversation.
Thank you. And Mr. Wagner?
Thank you. It gets back to the old rule of the broken window theory, and I just echo everything, kind of what everybody else has been saying here. The new streets are going to help a lot. We have a lot of crumbling streets. We have a lot of dilapidated homes or housing or public buildings, and a lot of weeds out there, a lot of places that need mowing, and perhaps we could provide more enforcement that way. Neighborhood watch programs, we haven't done many of those in the last few years. We need to do more of those. We need to support and continue to support through policing and community policing the neighborhood associations. And just, as I said at the outset, just try to focus on keeping every neighborhood clean, litter-free, yards groomed. I know out in San Francisco they have a law where you have to paint your home every few years. I know we can't do that here, but we could maybe be more diligent with some peer pressure and other programming and other socialized programs with some of these people through the city government and state government to maybe get some grant money to help enhance some of these neighborhoods as well.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Okay, and Ms. Knox-Seymour, we will start this round with this question. What would you do to help with our city property owners to stop neglect to properties? For example, do you favor fines or inspections or penalties or something else?
Okay, so what would I do with, say that again.
What would you do to help with our city property owners to stop neglect of properties?
Okay. Wow. I think one of the first things that I would do is go and talk to them. Whether that would be individually or collectively in terms of pulling together a town hall meeting or landlord meeting or something like that with respect to do it by way of neighborhoods or you know, like a town hall and just pull a lot of people together. Because you first want to know what the problem is. At least that's the way I would go about it. You want to talk to the people rather than right away penalizing someone. So first I would talk to them, find out what's going on, and if it can be helped in a way that is reasonable, meaning that they can take care of some situations fairly easy, then let's do that. But if, you know, I think that I would keep the fines off for, I would just keep the fines off.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hull.
Thank you very much. We have at Cedar Rapids an incredible city staff, and they do exactly what Carletta is suggesting in that they do go out and talk to people. They try to help find solutions. The city of Cedar Rapids has a grant rehab program that provides funding to people who that don't have the money maybe to provide a roof or provide a porch. We also have Habitat for Humanity that will come out and help paint the house. So there are resources available to homeowners already existing. But we do have an incredible staff that will always go out and talk with people before they jump in to fine them or to you know, take them to court or, you know, again, it boils down to communication both ways, and we're here to help, not penalize.
Mr. Wagner.
Well, I agree that penalty or fine or coming down hard on somebody is probably the last resort, because it often is the case that these are seniors or people of, you know, that are poor and may not have the money or resources to take care of their homes. And again, I agree with Ann. We could perhaps tap into community resources like Habitat for Humanity, the Boy Scouts, or local colleges that already do these kind of projects and programs. That's kind of a short-term solution, but maybe we could work with the neighborhood association or various neighbors and maybe get, you know, a local kid down the block to mow some person's yard for $10 or $15. I don't know if that's our role to do that, but we could encourage it through the neighborhood associations and perhaps with police officers and city staff that could assist with that. But it is a fine line. It's a difficult call because everybody has their own home and treats it in different ways. We all want pristine lawns and porches and roofs and paint, but we realize too that that's all an impossibility in our society, but we can certainly do what we can at that level.
And Ms. Lyon.
Thank you. Yes, we do have an incredible staff, and they are on deck to make sure that people are connected to the resources they need to keep homes and neighborhoods in repair. It had been mentioned that we connect them to the Habitat for Humanity and other entities to assist them. And it's good for the city because we're wanting to keep housing on the tax rolls, and we want to make sure that we have a good, safe, clean community. We're working with Waypoint, Four Oaks, Affordable Housing Network, Total Child, Willis Dady, and other community organizations to ensure that tenants of homes and families that own their homes do not have to live in unsafe properties, and that the properties next door to them are safe. So a clean, livable community is our great action plan that we already have in place. And the city has also partnered with them to ensure that everyone has a safe, nice place to live, and that's what people want when they move into Cedar Rapids, and I believe that what we're hearing is that's what people want if they live in Cedar Rapids and they would like to move from one area to another.
Thank you. And so, this question is for you first. We've talked a little bit about this already. All four of you have spoken to it in one way or another, but what specific plan do you have for one or more quality recreation centers in town?
One or more. Well, as I mentioned, we have underway that'll be open next summer. I think it's summer. The Northwest Recreation Center, and that will provide programs and opportunities for both children, young adults, and senior citizens. In terms of other, that was provided, we received that money from FEMA, and for replacement of what we had lost in the flood of 2008. But I think, when it comes to putting additional recreation centers in, we're going to have to get creative. We had money given to us through FEMA, but we're going to have to look at opportunities. We're going to have to prioritize where we put those recreation centers, and we're going to have to look for funding opportunities, whether it's at the state level or the federal level. We'll have to look for grants. We may have to look at it some of our community partners. People understand the importance of what the community center means to Cedar Rapids. Thank you.
Mr. Wagner.
Well, we definitely need a rec center. As I mentioned, the one we're in is over 100 years old now. And we've talked about this and talked for 30 years, I believe. Since I was a kid, we've talked about it. When I was commissioner, we had at least one study, $300,000 from the feds. We spent another $400,000 or $500,000 studying this. It's not rocket science. Let's just build a rec center. I realize it costs money. When I put it to a vote, I think it would pass if you put together a nice package that would include multi-generational facilities for older folks, younger folks, and anybody that want to use it. But we got to do something about basketball and help create some recreational fun for these baby boomers that are retiring. I wanted to build a complex over there where Mount Mercy's doing it now, and maybe we could partner with one of the local colleges, Mount Mercy and/or Co. Two great resources here, a lot of space over there right in the heart of Cedar Rapids, or go down to Newbo, but we've talked and studied this thing to death. We can move forward very quickly if we put our mind to it. There's probably 5 studies down there at City Hall right now. We don't need any more. Let's just move forward and get it built.
Ms. Wagner.
Thank you. So in terms of that, I liaison to the Parks and Recreation Commission, and therefore in constant communication and talk and aligned with them. So we've been working on the establishment of foundation for bricks and mortar and endowment for maintenance and construction. We'd love to see 10 more rec centers in 10 years. Wade has said, well, it sounded like what he said is he would tax to get there, so we currently have a local sales tax in place, so it might be years for that. The reality is a stream of revenue is needed to move this forward, and right now the Parks, Waterway, and Recreation has about 6% of the budget. So community public recreation centers struggle for the same reasons that nonprofits like YMCA's do. Operational costs have to be offset. So to be affordable for all, we must bring and level the subsidy that's needed. And one of those typical ways is through sponsorships, like we did with the McGrath Amphitheater. So there's other ways also, like tournaments and things like that. But we currently have 96. Go ahead. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just thinking about what specific idea that I would come up with for Quality Recreation Center, money is always going to be the focal point. So putting that aside, we need to have, I'm thinking about the multi-generational kind of method, that concept, and it's a good one. It is good. One way that it would lend itself certainly is that we have the older teaching the younger, and that's always a good thing. And vice versa. But I would also like to make sure that senior citizens, for example, that they can have something kind of to themselves. And I think because of that generation, they might want to just have something to themselves. So, they need exercise, they need quilting, they need all those kinds of programs. Young people, on their own, I think they need something special.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Wagner, you'll be the first one to answer this question. How much longer can we rely on the state rollback to keep our city revenue flowing before we increase the property tax rate?
Well, the rollback is a complex issue, which I understand. I don't want to explain it here in a minute, but I think we need to redefine and re-evaluate how we tax here in Iowa. And we've been, again, talking about this like the rec center for 30 or 40 years. We basically need to find a formula that is fair and equitable. And what the state has been doing is putting pressure on the Board of Education, us, the counties, for years, based on the formulas they're using. And it's got to be changed because I don't know. I think that's got to be answered in Des Moines. To be honest with you, I don't know what we can do here. And we've been talking to them for 30 years down there to make it more equitable and fair for all involved. So I guess that's the only way I can answer that right now.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner.
So as Wade said, rollback is complicated, and it has definitely put pressure on the local government as well as education. So I do think it takes talking to and working with our local legislators to see what direction they're going in order for the trickle down that comes when state legislators make policy that affects all of us.
Ms. Knox-Seymour.
Yeah, I think we need to, I agree with Susie in this way, that we need to make sure that we have good communication with our legislators, because they're the one that's going to be able to feed us that information, and then we can talk about that in terms of what's going on in our city and how we can be, how we will be affected by that. But it is at more at the state level is what I also agree.
Ms. Hall.
Thank you very much. This is I agree. This is a state issue when it comes to the state rollback formula, and it is about the relationship with your state, local, or state elected officials. Not only, we've been able to hold our tax levy rate at $15.22 per thousand assessed value over the last 4 years since I've been on council. But one of the things that will affect us is the commercial rollback. And that commercial rollback, we have to be sure it has some gap funding in place, and we have to be sure that we continue to get that money, because that also has an impact on our city and our community. So I think we just have to keep the lines of communication open with our state elected officials. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Lack, this question is, you'll start this round. As Cedar Rapids develops at the fringes, and we know there's a lot going on in West Del Mall and the fountains over at Edgewood and along Blair's Ferry Road, how do we maintain a healthy city core?
We continue with the Healthy City Core by all of the initiatives that we have going, which include the preservation of the homes that we already have, and by our infill and the programs that we have, that we'll see those change as Roots comes to an end, but we always have things in the toolbox that will continue to help us with infill. So infill is the answer, and that's how we get there.
Thank you, Ms. Knox-Seymour.
I agree with the infill development. having been born and raised in Cedar Rapids and came up around where Iowa Steel used to be and the packing house and many different areas in the city, and then having moved away and then come back, and then there was kind of, in a small way, it was kind of blight. There were blighted areas. And so now, the way that I see things moving forward is doing that infill development. And so I think that is the way to go. It keeps our city healthy, and it does connect. And with even Highway 30 and you know, the other roads that are being developed, that's also helping to connect each other, connect us, with you know, one side of the town to the other side. And I think it's just going to keep us flowing in a better way.
Thank you. Ms. Howe?
Yes, thank you. After the flood of 2008, the council at the time said that their priority was infill, which meant the core of our community. It was divided into the core with ring 1 and then ring 2 as it went out into some of our older neighborhoods and then out into ring 3. And this council has carried on that initiative by focusing on the core of our community. And you can see the result of that in the Nubo district. That was a very purposeful development that required infill and required investment, both with public and private investment, and continuing our work with our private partners has been critical to our infill. So whether it's Nubo, whether it's Kingston Village, whether it's the Bible Ellis corridor, we have to keep those relationships strong and keep moving forward with infill.
Thank you. I grew up on 30th Street Drive right up the hill here, about 2 miles from here. Alice Chalmers sat empty for almost 50 years up there, and as a kid I always wondered why we couldn't do something with that. Well, programs like TIF, the condos, Nubo, Kingston Village, all those developments programs are all going to help. And from a public safety standpoint, if we can kind of consolidate our resources and energy and housing and people in a more central location, that saves money for police and fire too, for protection, for patrols, and that sort of thing. So that's another good benefit from infill, and I completely support that, and all the things we've been doing as far as enhancing downtown, the streets, bike trails, and opening new businesses down there in Nubo and all the development there. That's all positive and good things, and I'm glad we're doing it for all the reasons I mentioned.
Okay. This will be the last question, and Ms. Knox-Seymour, you will be the first to respond. What would you do to support education in our community?
What would I do to support education in our community?
As a city council member.
Well, one of the things I've heard over several years is that whenever I used to talk about city council and the school coming together to do something, it was always stated, oh, they're two different entities and council can't mix with the school board and that kind of thing. And so that always confused me because I look at it as we are one. So I would say if for me, Carletta, I think that we need to be very effective in terms of working together as one with the school board. And because there are problems that the school board needs our help in, and after all, we as, there's a trade-off here. We say that we're going to get your children to school and for 12 years.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Howe?
Yes, thank you very much. You know, there has been, we have different budgets. We act independently. We have our own governance. And yet we have worked very effectively with the school board on, for example, the recreation center. So I think continuing open lines of dialogue, helping each other where we can. You know, when the school board wanted to shut Harrison School, the city of Cedar Rapids, its mayor, got pretty proactive and said, no, wait a minute, that's a portion of our community that was flood impacted, and in order for us to bring it back, we need to keep that school open. And so having that kind of honest, open dialogue with the school board, I think, was extremely effective. So continuing to look for those kind of opportunities where we can work together is going to be very important. And back down to my councilwoman, Wyna, who has been helping to develop those kind of programs, has been very successful. Thank you.
Mr. Wagner.
Cedar Rapids has a sister city in China, and we haven't really done a lot with them, but I would certainly encourage us as a city to work for more cultural exchanges and more educational exchanges with some of these places. And as far as the kids go, I think the city could be more actively engaged in getting kids involved in the arts and utilizing some of our facilities. And in terms of recreation, perhaps we could partner with the school district with a recreational program, recreational center, and that sort of thing. But that is a kind of a sensitive issue because we are separate domains and separate administrations and separate kind of operations. But one thing I served on some boards when I was on commissioner that worked with Iowa Workforce Development, and there were educators on that, and I was encouraging the city and the schools to provide more foreign language in like Chinese and that kind of thing, and we are involved at that level. So I think those kind of partnerships are important.
Ms. Wyna.
Thank you. So we talk about funding, so just a really quick overview. I think that what Carlotta was saying and the other folks here is that state funding comes to education directly. It doesn't come through the city. So we are kind of two separate entities, but we learn to coexist is what has happened in the past within our communities. Most recently, our council and staff has worked very hard and efficiently to bring together groups for CR youth, and that's happening through Iowa Big. So not only is Cedar Rapids being served, but kids from Mount Vernon and some other communities surrounding us, and that's project-based learning. So kids are coming into our city and they're working with our city staff side by side to learn how to do things that will then enhance what will happen once they leave high school, which not necessarily needs to be 4 years. They could be looking at pre-apprenticeships. So we also have this group, CR Youth was still brand new, but when the violence came, they reacted very quickly, and we brought together the 100 Youth Who Care, Metro students and others, along with the CR Youth, about violence response groups. So we have kids going out and doing that as well, so it's being effective.
Thank you. Before we entertain closing statements, and we will start with the line at the other end of the line here, the only question that wasn't asked that I was handed was about the DoubleTree Hotel. If this is your question, I'm sure that each one of these candidates would be willing to stay afterwards and answer your question in person. But the question is, the city is the owner of the DoubleTree. What should the city do with this facility in the future? So if that's your question and you're just dying to have an answer, I'm sure that they will be glad to answer your question after this is over. So with that, each candidate is allowed 2 minutes for a closing statement, and we'll start with Ms. Wyna.
Thank you. So in the 2 years that I've been on council, but also long before that, people knew me as someone who was solution-oriented and got results. And so that's what I brought to council, is I've worked effectively with our council, which I believe is in a great position of working together for the common good for the folks at Cedar Rapids. So I've been able to bring different groups of people together on a couple of pretty big issues, and my philosophical approach of working together has been working for us. It's helped in building a council coalition around the synthetic drug ordinance, which has given police a way to stay ahead of the drug dealers who were using loopholes to legally go after our kids and to bring them into a world that is not necessarily what is the best for them, and in fact is not. It's helped me to rally my colleagues around an idea to get more active in youth outreach, it's also rallied us with guiding our efforts in how we communicate with citizens. And this great community and I'm looking for your support in this great community for the next 4 years. And I'm asking you to entrust your vote to me, Susie, on November 3rd, as together we continue to move our community forward.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner.
Well, thank you very much. As I've mentioned in the media and other people I've talked to, I have really no qualms or issues with the city council or the mayor. In fact, just the opposite. I think they've done a tremendous job, to be honest with you. After the flood, we've had unbelievable challenges as a city, $3 billion in damage. I've lived here my whole life. I've never seen a tsunami come through my city and just wipe out an entire community. So I want to thank you for your work and what you've done. It's hard serving. It's a noble profession. You need a thick skin, and I'm not up here to be critical of anybody. I'm just running because I have a deep pride and sense of, well, ownership in my own community. I grew up fishing in Indian Creek, just up the street here. I went to school, high school here. I went to Coe College. I graduated at Coe. I went to the University of Iowa. I worked as a broadcaster for 25 years, broadcasting to all of you. I've made many friendships. And as I mentioned before, at the outset, my son was born a week before my second term in office. And he's over at McKinley now. He'll be 12 in a couple of weeks. And my wife is from China. She thinks this is a remarkable city. She was a little trepid about me running because nobody loses in China when you run for office over there. And she's still not used to that. And she takes things a little personally sometimes. And I said, this is all part of the learning process for you and for me. But anyway, I just love this city. I've been to 46 states. I've been to every major city in this country. It's a great country. I've been to 22 countries around the world. We have the best water in the world. We have some of the best neighborhoods, some of the best schools. We have an excellent police department, excellent fire department. We have a great city staff. A lot of them are still there. And I just want to be part of the team again that works. I enjoyed my time as a Parks Commissioner and on City Council. And if you are willing to give me a chance, I would hope I could represent you well in the election November 3rd. And thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate it. And I thank all of you for being here and your public service.
Thank you. And Ms. Poe.
Thank you. And again, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting us tonight and all of you coming out. I'm proud of my council teammates. It's taken a lot of political will, courage, and bold moves to bring us back from the flood of 2008. That was a horrific disaster of magnitude of over $7 billion. And we've had to make tough decisions since then, and we've made them, and they haven't always been easy. But I would like to see Cedar Rapids continue to grow and be a community where both families and businesses can thrive, not just survive. I am passionate about Cedar Rapids. I love Cedar Rapids. It's my home. I've traveled many other places. My family's here, my 3 children and my 4 grandchildren. And so as I make decisions for this community, I think about how is this going to impact them? What are we leaving behind for them? What does this community look like for them? And today I'm here to tell you, I'm very proud of Cedar Rapids. I'm proud of how far we've come. They told us it was going to take 15 to 20 years after the flood of 2008. I'm here to tell you it took us 7. So thank you all very much for being here tonight. Thank you for your support of our city staff, City Manager Pomerantz and his directors and team is absolutely wonderful. They make us look good. So thank you all very much, and again, my sincere thanks to the League.
Thank you. And Ms. Knox-Seymour.
I too want to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to allow all of us to be here today, this evening. And I want to say that I think it's important that there is different representation that sits at the council. Our city is growing in very diverse ways. And if people don't see diversity in their government, then they kind of think everything is status quo, always the same, nothing changing. And the more diverse our population in Cedar Rapids becomes, the more it absolutely needs to have a face at the city government level that indicates that we are moving forward in a progressive way. So I am sitting here asking for your vote on November 3rd because I want to make sure that we are building bridges together, because that's what it's going to take. And in light of recent issues in our city, specifically the African American community, that has already made an impact, I believe, on most of us that says what's going on, what needs to be done, those kinds of things. Well, I want to be part of that change. And so I think by me being there, it's going to help impact that. And I can speak to a number of issues that perhaps no one else can speak to, particularly when it comes to things for programs and those kinds of things that affect other people. People that are not your next door neighbors, so to speak. So I really want to work for you. I want to make some changes. I want to bring a fresh face. I want to change the world.
Thank you. I'd like to close this forum by thanking all of the candidates for their participation in our democratic process. Are we not fortunate to have 4 candidates who are passionate, intelligent, and willing to put their lives aside, to be honest, and run for this public office? So please join me in giving them a